MacVoices is supported by Fight Camp. Look good and feel good with at-home connected boxing. Try it free for 30 days at joinfightcamp.com/voices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is part 2 in our 2-part conversation with Andy Affleck, the author of the newly revised Take Control of Podcasting. In the first part, Andy talked about some of the revisions to the book, what caused those revisions, and focused a little more on some of the new tools and services that are out there that can help you become a podcast producer. This time, Andy focuses a bit more on the iPhone and iPad as a podcasting device and why you might not want to give up your Mac just yet. Here's Andy. Andy, let's jump into the iPad iPhone option a little bit, just because I know you said that, okay, we're not quite there yet. That doesn't mean, though, that you can't do parts of that recipe again. And what did you discover as you were writing this book, and what did you like and what did you not like about trying to produce a podcast on an iPad or iPhone?
From the recording perspective, they're still excellent. It's always been, I remember I told a story in an earlier edition of the book of wanting to do a podcast at a play rehearsal for the theater I'm in, and realizing that I didn't have GarageBand wasn't set up on my phone. I needed to download all this stuff, and had no Wi-Fi there. So I thought, I'll try something else. And then I found out, and I know like 5 things didn't work until I finally downloaded this random app called Voice Recorder Pro and was able to then record the podcast. That story is no longer in the book because that was 6 years ago, and people I think know that there's an app for that. I don't think we need to cover that topic anymore. You can find a recording app. It's pretty easy, but the iPhone is incredibly handy as a digital recorder. Its microphone on its own is actually quite good. I don't know that I would use it like sitting here and talking into it as my podcast. I don't think that would be recommended. But certainly if you're out in the field using it to just, do the back and forth, it's certainly serviceable enough for that sort of thing. So that's not a problem. The editing is where things can get a little challenging. Like I mentioned before, editing in Ferrite is actually quite nice. I find GarageBand to be kind of clunky on the iPhone and on the iPad. It works, but it's nowhere near as easy as it is on the Mac. But you can do it. Ferrite is a lot more elegant. There's a lot to it. Jason Snell has a fantastic video that he did where he shows off the editing features of Ferrite, and I actually linked to it in the book because it's just that useful. I said, you know what, for an advanced look at this, take a look at this video because it's great what you can do with this when you get really, because he's at the point where he can just with the pencil, you zip, 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 run through the thing and just I'll remove that. Okay, I take that, move that, but he just goes so fast because he's so fluent with it. Me trying to do it, I'd be like, yeah. But here's where things fall down. The big one is on the audio front. I've got this handy little Samson Go mic, which is one of my little portable USB mics. It's a very handy thing. It comes with a little bitty cable. I can plug it into my iPhone directly. I've got a somewhere around here. I have this handy little USB-A to Lightning converter, so I can plug this into my phone, and that's great. And I can use the microphone to give myself some better audio. What I do is I have a selfie stick, which I guess is somewhere else, but I have a selfie stick that I can, I use the phone and I can attach the microphone to it. I can hold the whole thing out so I can get close to somebody if I'm not nearby enough to really, or even as a boom mic, just sort of get my arm out of frame or something if I'm videoing, but as a boom mic to sort of to record a conversation. But here's where things get strange. What if you wanted to monitor what you were recording? What if you wanted to, say, pop in your AirPods or, do some other method of listening in? Well, first of all, you've only got one Lightning port. And so unless you have something that gives you 2 Lightning ports, you have no way of plugging in a pair of AirPods or earbuds. You are stuck with just the one port. So if you try to use AirPods, here's the problem. Unlike the Mac, you can't split your audio. If you pop in the Samson Go mic, or if I take this classic XLR dynamic mic that's going into a mixer and then into an old iMic digital audio converter and into my Mac, if I put that in, the iPhone and the iPad will treat this as both an input device and an output device. There's no way to say microphone is this, but speaker is this other thing. It's both or nothing. And so there's no way to do monitoring. You can't listen on headphones while you're recording. And that can be a real problem for some people. It was a problem for me. It's like, how do I do this? How do I, if you want to just have a Skype call, but do it on the phone, like we're doing right now, I would have no way of hooking up a microphone and hearing you. It just wouldn't work. So.
Since I haven't tried that, I mean, I've done plenty of recording with my iPhone and my iPad, but I haven't had that particular use case scenario. And now that you pointed out, it's like, yeah, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Unless you could attach an external mixer, which then would give you all those options, but that's one more piece of hardware you have to carry around with you.
Exactly. So until that gets addressed, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some advanced something somewhere deep in the heart of iOS or iPad OS that I am not seeing. And if somebody out there is listening to this and says, "Oh no, you just do this," please tell me, and we'll stop hitting your mic stand, and I will. I'll hit my mic stand, and I will update the book accordingly, and give you credit too to say, "Hey, Joe Schmo reached out to me and pointed out that this is how you do it."
Yeah, and that's too bad because well, again, I know that there are a couple companies that advertise, mobile podcast studio, but they're selling a piece of hardware, and that's where the connectivity that you need comes in. And of course, then they throw in all kind of bells and whistles on their device too, so that you have multiple microphones connected. You probably don't even need a USB mic. You might even be able to use XLRs, all kind of great stuff. But you pay for it and you have to carry it.
Right. Exactly. And I did think about covering one of those devices, the Rode Podcaster, not the Podcast Pro microphone, but the I can't remember what the actual device, which is sort of what you described there. It's like a single device with multiple XLR inputs. Probably it's the dual inputs, the XLR / quarter-inch. I forget there's a name for that. It's in the book. It helps that my editor is an audio engineer and somebody who specializes in this stuff, so he knows a lot of these. Like, oh, this thing's called a this.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the rest of it just okay, this is what we plug in and hit the power button and go. So
right.
Yeah. So all that said, it's not the iPad is not a full-fledged machine, but it sounds like you can do some editing on it. How about the file transfer issues? Has that gotten better, or is it still problematic?
It's gotten better. You can transfer the files via AirDrop, which is probably the easiest way to do it. If you got an iCloud account, you can just AirDrop and it comes up on the Mac, and there you go. It's transferred. If not, you can use or if you have iCloud, you could use also the iCloud drive. You can save it to the iCloud drive on the iPad or the iPhone, and it will show up on the Mac automatically. It's so the file management has gotten better. I still feel like it's like still too many taps to do anything. It always just feels like if I want to do something on the iPad that I do on the Mac I could go click done, and on the iPad I got to go tap 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 done. It's just more steps to it, but you're only doing that at the end, so it's not that big of a deal. So yes, you can do that. Jason Snell made a very interesting comment when we were talking about this. He had said that he would love to see, through the magic of Catalyst, which is Apple's technology for porting iOS apps to the Mac, the ability to bring the Ferrite editor over to the Mac so we could use it on the Mac. And so that he could keep it all in one place, because just moving the file over to the iPad just to use Ferrite and then to move it back again is just a little bit a little too much. And so I don't know. I liked it when I played with it. I don't see myself using it. I don't see myself paying I think it's a $30 in-app purchase to unlock everything, so you get the full tool and all of its bells and whistles. And I thought, well, this is nice, but I don't see myself doing that because I can't imagine using it. I don't have a need for a mobile podcast, especially now in this, with lockdown. I'm not going anywhere, so this is everything I need is on the Mac. It's all right here on my desk, and it's fine. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 microphones within reach right now, but so I don't need a portable setup. When this is over, knock on wood, I can reevaluate then and see if maybe having a setup works. But also, I mean, unlike people who make their living doing podcasts, I'm not making my living doing podcasts. I do it for fun. So if I go on a vacation, I don't need to bring a portable setup with me. And so I can, in my hotel room, do the whole post-processing and upload the file and thus keep my podcast on schedule. That's not anything I need. I can just say, I'm taking a couple weeks off. I'll post an episode when I get back, whatever. It's my needs are very, very different than somebody who makes a living off of this. And so from the perspective of a beginner book, I don't feel the need to worry about it too terribly much. So I feel comfortable saying, yeah, you could use it for these things. It's a little hinky. You're better off sticking to the Mac, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Maybe by the second edition of this book, it'll be like, wow, here you go. Why would you use the Mac? You could do all this right from your porch outside. Who knows?
This part of the conversation strikes me as one we could have had, that 13, 15, 16 years ago, that when the tools weren't there, or the people were either cobbling them together themselves, or the developers were just starting to figure out that, hey, there's a market for this, and I can be one of the first to market, or I can be better than the guy that's already there, and that's where we are now with podcasting on the Mac. You have an embarrassment of tools that you can select from, and an embarrassment of editors that you can select from, and services and publishing tools and FTP tools and all those things. And the iPad really hasn't quite gotten there yet. Not that it's not the capable machine, but the software needs to be tweaked, and some of the applications need to be tweaked a bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the only difference is that the Mac has always had certain capabilities, like the ability to split the audio, which allow a lot of these things to work for recording. So there is a certain, and even the file management has only just really become usable in the last couple of years. I think it was iPad OS 11 or 12 that added, or it was iOS then, but it was 11 or 12 that added the file manager in the first place, the actually a capable one that worked well. And even that is still kind of growing into itself. So I feel like even at the OS level, we're still, I guess a good analogy would be when this all came out in 2003, 2004, we had Mac OS 10 and all of its capabilities at that time, which were substantial. I feel like in many ways, the iPad is sort of like Mac OS 7 still. It's still like classic Mac. It's like it can do a lot of the things that the later ones could do, but there's also a lot of things that it can't do. And so you're hampered by the operating system a little bit. There are some workarounds, but in general, I feel like you're only going to be able to compensate so much for what the operating system isn't providing for you. So,
yeah, and as you said earlier in the conversation, this is intended as a beginner's book, as a way to get you up and running, to give you a path to run down. And then if you want to go into some of these more advanced topics, contact Andy and talk to him about it, or, talk to a podcaster. Here we go again. Out there are a million different resources to take advantage of now, whereas back then there were very few. So I also think that you're bringing this book out at an interesting time, we're still on lockdown. Many of us are still working from home. We're trying to come out of lockdown. It seems like we're a bit schizophrenic about it. One minute we want to come out, the next minute we don't think we should, and that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
But during this time, plenty of people have started podcasts or tried to start podcasts, and some have succeeded and some have stumbled, and I think some have given up. So this book will come out at a time when, okay, I've tried it. Maybe I would like to do it, but I really don't know what I'm doing. And this will give them the roadmap so that they can succeed if they really want to continue with the podcast.
That's what I hope. And interestingly enough, I raised the issue of the new copy or the new version of the book before all this happened, before we knew we were going into lockdown. It was only after we went into lockdown that I said, all right, let me start working on this for real, instead of having a couple of months of like, yeah, let's sort of get to this. Let's talk about it. No, they became, okay, no, I could see the writing on the wall. This is going to be, in a way, I wish this book came out 4 months ago, because that would have been, sort of on the upswing of a lot of this. I mean, I don't know how long this second wave is going to last. I haven't left the house. I mean, I go for rides in the car and I go for walks around the neighborhood, but I have not been in another building other than my house since March 13th, when this whole thing started for us. That's when we went into lockdown. And that's just because of my own personal health. It's just, I'm a high risk person. So we're taking every precaution to keep out of it. But, so who knows how long this is going to go on for, but I'm hoping that if people want us to do a podcast, this book is going to help them get off the ground and get started. I've always had this dream of doing a companion podcast to the book, so that the community, first of all, I hope there would be a community. A community could evolve in some fashion, and that I could then work off other people. And we could say, that they give their questions, I give answers. We could have discussions. Somebody's figured something really cool out. Let's do this thing. I would love that to happen. I've tried it in the past. I had to crop one of the pictures in the book. I talk about adding a podcast to the iTunes Connect part of Apple, which is what you use to manage your content with them. And I showed the community theater podcast by cropping the picture. If I had uncropped it just a little bit, you would have seen the long deleted Take Control of Podcasting podcast. So I would love to bring that back. I think about that, like, well, should I start a second podcast? But the first one kind of fizzled, but that was also back in, I think I did that in 2000 and I don't know, somewhere at least 10 years ago. So maybe the conditions are better now. It's a conversation I probably should have with my publisher to see what resources Take Control has, because I don't even know if they would support my being able to host a podcast on the site versus running it somewhere else and just linking to it, etc. So it might be, if I would love to find out if there was some traction there, people would be interested in a podcast about podcasting that we can all learn from each other.
Fight Camp is supporting this edition of MacVoices. Look good and feel good with at-home connected boxing. Fight Camp is a fun way to get the whole family motivated to be active and fit. If the kids are doing homeschooling, they have lots of pent-up energy. If you're working from home, you may not have pent-up energy, but you need to find a way to get motivated to exercise. Fight Camp can tackle both of those with their body weight and at-home boxing workouts taught by real fighters. You don't have to be a fighter, though. It's made for everyone from beginners to seasoned competitors. And their punch tracking sensor lets you not only track your progress, but compete with family, friends, or others on their leaderboard on the Fight Camp community on Facebook. And you never get bored. With over 400 different workouts and new ones being added each week, you can get a wide variety of options to keep you engaged. Workouts are just like real boxing matches. 3 minutes of intense boxing and bodyweight exercises, and 1 minute of rest. Never tried boxing before? Fight Camp's 12-week starter program teaches you the fundamentals while giving you a great workout. You can try Fight Camp workouts for free by downloading the Fight Camp app right now, and then when you find out how great those workouts are, you can sign up. Fight Camp offers flexible financing for as low as 0% APR, and right now, as a limited time offer, you can try Fight Camp for 30 days with their money-back guarantee. Just go to joinfightcamp.com/voices. That's right. Try Fight Camp for 30 days, and if you don't love it, they'll refund your money. Train like a fighter and turn your sweat into results. To try Fight Camp for 30 days, just go to joinfightcamp.com/voices. joinfightcamp.com/voices. Thanks to Fight Camp for their support of MacVoices.
So.
Listen, I think there are audiences out there for everything. It doesn't matter how broad or narrow your topic are. It's just the numbers might not be. You have to decide what numbers you're going to be satisfied with. Some people say, they want 1 million subscribers, and it's like, well, good luck, because unless you're going to talk politics or religion, I don't think you're going to get 1 million subscribers. So, and frankly, the more niche your podcast is, I think the better it is, because you're going to attract smaller audiences, but you're going to attract very dedicated, very loyal audiences. And it's a quality thing versus a quantity thing as far as I'm concerned.
When I was looking at the Podcrums podcast that I ended in 2006 or so, I realized in looking at it that I was just starting to get traction. There were people I'd never heard of who were emailing me and writing into me and sending me stuff. And I thought, why did I stop this? Why did I stop recording this podcast? I was just starting to get some traction. So I'm hoping that maybe this will happen with this other podcast. And maybe I'll just do the Take Control the podcasting within this podcast, because half that podcast was like interviewing Dave Weiner, or I did a 3-episode arc of interviewing a singer-songwriter that my sister was friends with, who's released a couple of albums and was really interesting. And we had a great time talking, and he played some songs for us. So and then it was me testing out microphones, like walking around outside the house with my Samsung Go mic to see what it sounds like outside, stupid stuff like that. So I thought maybe this podcast could be, I don't know. We'll see. Somewhat, yeah. I'll create this thing. I'll create this thing and see if it takes off.
Well, good. And that's another thing I did want to ask you. Do you address the issue of pod fading, or the dedication that podcasting takes? Because I always tell folks, look, it's a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade anything for it, but don't be misled. It is a fair amount of work.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you have to be your own marketing department. And I see you and how often you post to Facebook and how often you post at, you've got to continually get yourself out there and let people know, here's something new, here's something new, here's something new, here's something new. There's a lot of self-promotion that's required. One of the new things in this edition of the book is exactly addressing that, not the pod fading aspect, but more the setting up audience expectations that you would do well to set a schedule for your show and upload on schedule. The example I use is my daughter and I are both, very big fans of My Brother and Me by the McElroy brothers. It's just a very fun podcast, and I feel bad promoting them now because they just announced they're publishing a podcasting book, and I'm like, oh, but let's fight. And I'm sure their book is going to be excellent because they are good, but it's not coming out till next year, so you need mine until then. And I think theirs is more about the business of podcasting, because this is how they make their living, is through this podcast. Anyway, I digress. Their show comes out every Monday evening without fail. Every Monday, they seem to just keep churning these things out. I don't know if they take breaks or not, and they go travel around and do live shows. So some of them are live shows. And I guess if they can't get together to record in a given week, then they'll release one of the live shows they've recorded previously. But they continually come out every Monday, and we've come to expect that. Like, oh, it's Monday. Yes, new My Bim Bam tonight, and then we go listen to it. So I talk about setting a schedule, and I also talk about setting seasons that a lot of podcasts are doing now, very much like TV, where you say, all right, I'm going to do a 15-episode season of podcasts. So for 15 weeks, every Thursday night, I'm going to release an episode of my podcast. And that gives me 15 weeks of fairly intense work. And if you're smart, you're going to sit down and get at least the first 4 or 5 episodes done before that 15 weeks starts, so that if you have a bad week, you get sick, you've got to travel for business, you can get away with not producing an episode because you have enough in the can. And then stopping and letting yourself breathe and just relax and take a vacation from your podcast. And then, after a certain amount of time, now it's season 2 and you go through it again. And how those are 2 methods to really help build an audience, because you become predictable and you become finite. The thing that's nice about My Bim Bam, My Brother and Me, is that you have absolutely no need of hearing a previous issue when you hear a new issue, because it's an advice show where they give terrible advice and they joke around, and that's the whole thing. And it's very clever. It's very funny. They're a very cool set of brothers who riff off each other very, very well. But there's absolutely zero need to listen to a past episode to understand this episode. Whereas if you have a serial podcast, and especially if you're telling a story, like what we're doing in the theater is we're in the process of recording Cyrano de Bergerac in space. So turning Cyrano de Bergerac into a space opera. According to the guy running it, it works very well. We've recorded Act 1 so far, and I'm helping him edit it. And we're waiting until we have Acts 2 and 3. There'll be 5 total, 5 episodes. We're waiting until we have 2 or 3 of them done before beginning the airing. So we're hoping sometime in the fall. But I lost my point.
Pod fading.
Senior moment.
Pod fading and
pod fading, right? But being predictable and if you're doing a serial show, that's right. By having a fixed schedule, and then stopping at the end of a season and taking a few months off before the next season, you give people a chance to catch up, so that you can start the next one and people have a chance to get caught up. It allows for, because if you want to build an audience, you need to lower that barrier. You need to make it so that, okay, I really heard this show is amazing, but I got to listen to 2 whole seasons and the 3rd season's just starting. What do I do? Well, you know what? You can just listen to them during the break, and then you could start the season, or you just, the nice thing with podcasting, it's all async. You can listen to it whenever you want to, and then start in. But building it in where you have like 15 episodes stop, you give people a chance to not feel overwhelmed and to get caught up reasonably. So,
I mean, good practical advice. And again, this still, it's not quite the Wild West that it was, but it's still a cutting edge thing. We're seeing it slide into the mainstream, I think, as Spotify tries to take it on, Amazon takes it on. Everybody is suddenly saying, yes, come to our service to listen to your podcasts, when, the reality is those podcasts are out there and have been for a while and doing just fine on their own. They really don't need those things. And then you have the corporately sponsored podcasts, and all this is a whole different set of discussions that we can get into. But at the end of the day, I would tell anybody, if you're passionate about something, and to your point, maybe just set up a series of 10 shows. I'm going to do a 10-show podcast on X. And, at 10 shows, all right, now decide if you want to do a season 2 or not. Or decide if you just want to continue on, but set the expectations and then do it, because it is a lot of fun. I promise you will learn a whole lot of things along the way. There's no way that you won't. And if you want to ease some of the pain, then go get Andy's book, and you won't have to learn some of those things the hard way.
Yep.
Like we all
Couldn't
have.
have said it better myself.
Yeah. So we think this book is called Take Control of Podcasting. But we're not exactly sure, but you can definitely find it at takecontrolbooks.com. And of course, this interview won't be published till it is live, so you can definitely go there and find it. Andy, thank you for the time. This has been, as always, it's fun. And I'll be anxious to see, if you bring back the previous podcast, if you start something new, or if I hope it's not another few years before we talk again.
Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe things will move very quickly and we'll be able to update the book sooner. And I'd love it to be more of a living thing and be able to talk more often about it and to have more of a community and all of that stuff. So we'll see what happens. So I've done it once. I have a virtual community that I created in 1995 that celebrated its 25th anniversary this February. So I did it once. I could do it again, I think.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
So,
well, come back anytime. You're always welcome. And it's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too. All right. Take care.
Stay out of trouble. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. If you're interested in getting into podcasting, this is the place to start. And as I just said, it's a great thing to do. You will learn a lot about yourself and about whatever topic you decide to take on, and you will find an audience. That's the biggest thing. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, Consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.